Know the difference. Land is the surface of the earth. Real estate is the land plus everything permanently attached. You need to know now the difference between real estate and real property. Real property is the surface of the earth with everything permanently attached, but it also includes the bundle of rights that include all the interests that we have in real property. Bundle of rights. We call this the allodial system, and the acronym for the bundle of rights is Deep C. Disposition, exclusion, enjoyment, possession, and control. Water rights. There are two water rights, or restrictions if you will. Littoral, which are those tidal bodies that include lakes and gulfs and oceans, and riparian rights, which are the flowing bodies, which are rivers and streams. Some of the other water rights that we need to know about: accretion is where the coastal buildup is. Erosion is water removing soil. Alluvion is the new land through the sediment of rivers. And reliction is the receding waters leaving exposed land. Estates in real property, and there are two of those, freehold and non-freehold. Freehold is ownership, which includes fee simple and a life estate. Non-freehold is less than ownership, and those are your estate for years, tenancy at will, and tenant at sufferance. These are sometimes known as leases. Life estate. The life estate is tagged to somebody's life. Typically speaking, that person is named in the deed, and when that person dies, it's very specific as to where the property goes. Remember that a life estate is uninheritable. If the property transfers back to the original grantor, that's called a reversion estate. If it's transferred to some third party, that's known as a remainder estate. Fee simple estates. There are several. To begin with, the estate in severalty. This is simply one ownership. In other words, you're severed from everyone else. You also have the tenant by the entirety. This is the marriage that owns the property. It's the husband and wife. And what's unique about the tenant by the entirety is an undivided interest, right, and use, and it has a built-in right of survivorship. Two other fee simple estates: the joint tenancy. The joint tenancy is between two or more persons in real property. The basic features of this is that they have equal interest, rights, and use, but in order for it to be a joint tenant, they have to state the right of survivorship in the deed itself. The tenant in common is two or more persons that own real property that may or may not have the same rights, interest, and use, and this is the one that does not have the right of survivorship. Non-freehold estates. This is less than ownership, typically a lease. The estate for years. In order to create an estate for years, first of all, it has to be in writing, it has to have a beginning date, and it has to have an ending date. The tenancy at will is an estate that's missing one of the components in writing, beginning date, ending date. Typically, the best example of a tenancy at will is a month-to-month tenant. If it's a month-to-month tenancy, it requires at least a 15-day notice to evict that person. If it's a week-to-week tenancy, it's going to require a 7-day notice for eviction. The tenancy at sufferance is simply a holdover. There's no agreements and no payments. They're just simply there. They still have some rights, but the eviction can be within 1 day. Florida homestead. You can file your primary residence as a homestead, and it has a lot of really great features. To begin with, the first $25,000 of value is totally tax exempt. Plus, if it's assessed for somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000, you get an additional $25,000 exemption, except for property taxes. Now, your homestead is designed in a way that it prevents foreclosure against judgment creditors. It protects properties up to a half an acre within the city limits and 160 acres outside the city limits. Now, it will not prevent foreclosure against mortgages, unpaid taxes, and unpaid special assessments, or mechanics liens. This is going to concern spousal inheritance. If the homestead is owned by one spouse and the owner's spouse dies, it should be understood that the surviving spouse cannot be disinherited. If there are no children involved, it will go to that spouse in fee simple. If there are children involved, it will go to that spouse as a life estate, and the children will be in a remainder estate.